If you're wondering how to start a counselling session, especially your very first one, you're not alone. One of the biggest questions trainee counsellors ask is, what do I actually say when my client sits down? The good news is that you don't need a perfect script. What matters most is creating a safe, welcoming space where the therapeutic relationship can begin. By the end of this video, you'll be able to understand what your client may be experiencing before they meet you. Explain why contracting is an essential part of starting a counselling session, and use simple opening invitations that help clients begin at their own pace. If you'd like a free handout that summarises how to start a counselling session, we've linked it in the description below. It gives you a practical guide you can refer back to before seeing clients. Let's begin with something that almost every experienced counsellor has in common. Most of us can still remember our very first client. You might spend the day feeling nervous. That responsibility can feel enormous. But remember this, you don't have to be perfect. You simply need to be present. One practical way to prepare is to arrive a little earlier than you need to. Give yourself a few quiet moments, take a breath, allow yourself to settle into the room. Leave behind the distractions of the day so that when your client arrives, your attention is fully with them. Now let's think about the client. Before they reached your counselling room, they may already have spoken to a GP, an assessor, or another professional. They may have waited weeks or even months for this appointment. They may have imagined this moment many times, or they may have absolutely no idea what they're going to say. For some clients, this is the first time they've spoken openly about what's troubling them, and they're doing that with someone they've only just met. When you think about the client's frame of reference, it's easier to understand why they might arrive feeling anxious, uncertain, or overwhelmed. So before thinking about what you're going to say, think first about what your client may be experiencing. That small shift in perspective can make a huge difference. Before you begin exploring what has brought the client to counselling, there is one important step: contracting. Some trainee counsellors worry that contracting feels formal or gets in the way of building a relationship. In reality, contracting helps create the conditions where that relationship can grow. A counselling contract commonly includes practical information such as confidentiality and its limits, session length, boundaries, record keeping, fees where applicable, and how the counselling will be delivered. It gives the client clarity, it gives the client choice, and it creates a safe framework for the work that follows. Confidentiality is particularly important. Many clients assume that counselling is confidential, but they may not know there are situations where confidentiality has legal or ethical limits. Explaining this clearly helps build trust from the very beginning. If you're unsure about any aspect of confidentiality or contracting, discuss it in supervision. If you'd like a simple framework for contracting and opening a counselling session, we've linked our article, How to Start a Counselling Session, in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on screen. It includes practical examples that complement what we're covering here. So you've welcomed the client, you've completed your contract. Now comes the question nearly every trainee asks: what do I say next? The answer is keep it simple. You might say, where would you like to begin? Or what would you like to bring today? Or how can I help today? There isn't one perfect opening question. The purpose is simply to invite the client into the work. You're letting them know that this is their space, their agenda, their pace. Once you've offered that invitation, your role becomes one of listening rather than directing. Every client will respond differently. Some people begin talking immediately. It can feel as though years of emotion come pouring out. If that happens, resist the temptation to interrupt simply because you think you should demonstrate counselling skills. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is to listen. Allow the client to tell their story. Other clients may sit quietly and say, I don't really know what to say. That's okay too. Silence isn't something you have to fix. Sometimes silence is exactly what the client needs. Giving someone the time and space to find their own words can communicate acceptance far more powerfully than rushing to fill every pause. So how might this show up in your work with clients? Rather than worrying about saying the right thing, Focus on creating an atmosphere where clients feel safe enough to begin when they're ready. Many trainee counsellors also worry about using enough counselling skills. They've spent months practicing reflections, paraphrasing, summarising and open questions. It's easy to feel as though every skill has to appear in the first session, but clients rarely leave counselling thinking, that was an excellent paraphrase. They're much more likely to remember how you made them feel. Did they feel heard? Did they feel understood? Did they feel accepted? Research consistently shows that the quality of the therapeutic relationship is one of the strongest contributors to successful counselling outcomes across different therapeutic approaches. If you're working in a person-centred way, Carl Rogers described 3 core conditions that support therapeutic change: congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard. In everyday language, that means being genuine, seeking to understand the client's world, and accepting them without judgment. One way you could bring this into your counselling room is to slow yourself down. Notice any pressure you feel to perform, then gently ask yourself, what does this client need from me right now? They may need a reflection, they may need a question, or they may simply need your full attention. Active listening, therapeutic presence, and the thoughtful use of silence are often among the most valuable skills in a first session. It's also worth remembering that every counselling session begins afresh. A client may bring something deeply significant in the first session and then talk about something completely different the following week. That doesn't mean you've missed something. It may simply mean they weren't ready to return to that material. So avoid deciding what therapy should be about. Continue inviting the client to lead. In later sessions, you might simply ask, where would you like to begin today? If they mention something towards the end of the previous session, you might acknowledge it gently by saying, last time you mentioned you might want to come back to that. We can do that if it feels right for you, but I wonder what you'd like to bring today. And that keeps the client in control of the agenda. It links the work together without directing it. If you're finding this helpful, don't forget you can download our free How to Start a Counselling Session handout by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code. It includes the key points we're covering today. So let's bring this together. Starting your first counselling session isn't about finding the perfect words. It's about creating the conditions where the client feels safe enough to begin. Arrive calmly. Think about the client's experience. Contract clearly. Explain confidentiality and its limits. Offer a simple invitation. Listen carefully. Allow silence when it's needed, and trust that the therapeutic relationship develops one conversation at a time. Remember, you don't have to know exactly where the session is going. Your client will show you what's important. Your role is to walk alongside them with empathy, authenticity, and respect. And if you're ever unsure about something that arises in your work, take it to supervision. Reflective practice is part of becoming a safe and effective counsellor. If you would like more free counselling resources, you can find these on our YouTube channel or on our website, counsellingtutor.com.